Hello everybody, it's me, B, back at it again, and this episode, things to read during quarantine. For escapism. So, it's kind of rough out there. Y'all feel like that SpongeBob meme?
The gang's all here. Oh!
Here, that's how I feel. The gang being my immediate family members and me stuck in this house together for this foreseeable future. I put together a list of books that I read when I was like in middle school that like kind of left their mark on me, and I still love them, so I guess I would consider them escapism. They're not very deep. Yeah, they're like a little more lighthearted type of things to read, because I couldn't think of anything that was like YA related that would be like positive escapism instead of like being stressful to read, except for maybe Shadow of the Fox, but like there's a whole whatever. Anyways, I have a list of books, and actually they're a little, I would say they're a little underground, a little bit obscure, you know, not to be like, oh, I'm not like other readers, but Percy Jackson's not on there. Like, you know, the big three: Percy Jackson, Artemis Fowl, and wasn't there another one? I'm so sure there was another like beloved kid series that was written by someone, but I can't remember what it was. Those were the only two popping up in my head. Anyways, those two are not on the list, because like not everyone's read those, but most people have read those. So why not try something new? You know, I don't know. Just saying. I'm not gonna tell you what to do with your life. It's your free time, okay? First series I'm recommending is Peter and the Starcatchers by Dave Barry, Ridley Pearson, and Greg Call. It's a trilogy with like 2 side novels about, it's like the prequel to Peter Pan. So this 10-year-old orphan named Peter and his good friend Molly, they are basically, they end up taking the job of like having to protect a bunch of this star stuffed pixie dust basically from pirates, thugs, thieves, and a whole bunch of people. There's like a Blackbeard character who's kind of like Captain Hook, I think, before he gets the hook and things like that, and he has a first mate named Mr. Smiley, not Mr. Shmee. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but yeah. So it's basically a prequel, and it's really cute. Like, there's, if you ever get the physical book, there's like a bunch of like illustrations in there, as you read, and they're really nice and detailed and things like that. And I really enjoyed the series because it was very whimsical. Like, it felt like a really appropriate, fantastical prequel to the story of Peter Pan, and you don't really have to even know much about Peter Pan itself to enjoy it, because I mean, I know who Peter Pan is, I know the story, but I was more concerned with Tinkerbell as a person than anything else. Like, I didn't care about him in relation to her. It doesn't matter. But yeah. And I think I've read the first 2 books of the series. I never finished. As a matter of fact, I didn't finish a lot of the books, a lot of the series on this list, simply because public libraries are underfunded, especially in schools. So there's that. But if I were to rate this whole series, probably a 3.5 to a 4 star, just because I haven't read the last one, but I remember, like, I have fond memories of the first 2. The first 2 are really good. My next recommendation is the Bobbie Pendragon series by DJ McHale. Now, DJ McHale has a lot of books, right? The main series I'm talking about is, you know, the Pendragon Chronicles. It's a 10-book series, which is a lot, but honestly, they're super fun. He has a whole other stuff about like that are kind of like prequels, side stories, and different things like that. But if you stick with like the main 10, it's actually a really good story. I've read about 8 or 9 of those books because, again, my library didn't have all the novels. which was so heartbreaking to me when I was younger, because let me tell you, okay, synopsis. The series is about this kid, 14-year-old Bobbie McHale? No, Bobbie Pendragon, 14-year-old Bobbie Pendragon, who finds out one day that he and his uncle are part of this group called the Travelers, I believe. And the thing with Travelers is that they basically hop from dimension to dimension via these tubes called flumes, and their job is to like bring peace and order to these different dimensions. The initial books are very lighthearted because Bobbie's, he's only 14. The things he faces aren't really that serious. There is an overarching villain that's like kind of manipulating for more chaos in these different worlds that they're fighting against, but it isn't until like he gets older and like starts going through more things and visiting more dimensions that he starts realizing that this guy has a serious problem. Like what he's doing is really like, kind of dark-sided, honestly, especially towards the end. So like and then the dimensions he goes to start to reflect that. So like as he gets older and things get more serious, the different problems of the dimensions get deeper and deeper, like until I think at some point he's basically trying to help deal with like, I don't know, a civil war or something like that, you know what I mean? And I don't know, it's really interesting. It's really nice. It's not super complicated sci-fi. It's, again, middle grade. They're very, very easy reads, from what I remember. And another thing I liked about the series is that the characterization is very strong. Bobbie especially, I think he's a really fun narrator. And from what I remember, I believe the books are written as if they're his journal. So you really get into his head and you're like you feel his emotions of being like 14 and like going on these different adventures and all this crazy stuff that's happening to him and things like that. But yeah, that one I'd probably give a strong 4, even though I never finished, because it was really good. Like I remember the Pendragon Chronicles, I ate those things up. Another series I would recommend is Savi by Ingrid Law. So Savi is as close to contemporary as I've ever read, probably, because I don't read a lot of contemporary. I just don't care for it. I really, really love Savi. That's because there's some supernatural elements to it, but whatever. But they all follow a young member of the Beaumont family, and the Beaumonts are a family of people who, when they're 13 years old, they develop an ability, like a power. Some members can control the elements, some members can move things around with their minds and things like that. And each of the main characters in these books are young kids who are developing their savvy, and they end up finding themselves along the way, really. Like in the first book, this girl, I think her name is Fish. No, Fish is a different character. But anyways, in the first book, this girl, she's about to come into her savvy, and her father gets really sick a couple states away. So she hops on a bus to go find him because she's sure that her ability will be able to save his life. Only to find out that the bus she got on is going in the opposite direction. So now she has to find her way back home and go on this journey without really even meaning for it to be a journey. She had like a mission, but she didn't really plan it out very well because she's 13. They're really cute books. Each one is a standalone, more or less, because they're all, within the same universe, but each story is, you don't need to know anything about the other ones to read them. Like, you can read them out of order and it'd be fine. I'd give it a solid 3. No. Between a 3 and a 4 again. Like, they're not spectacular, but they are pretty good. They're nice. They're just calming read. This next one is called the Bartimaeus Trilogy by Jonathan Stroud. It's a series about a djinn named Bartimaeus who's summoned several times over the lifetime of a man named Nathaniel. And Nathaniel initially summons him from a very, very young age, asking for revenge against someone who humiliated him, which is actually a recurring theme for that character. Pride is basically Nathaniel's greatest sin, I guess you could say. It's what he struggles with throughout the series. And the book is written from Bartimaeus' point of view because he does more of the interesting stuff, I'm not gonna lie. Bartimaeus is he's a very funny narrator. There's some footnotes in the story, kind of like how Jay Kristoff does his footnotes, but they are a lot less, and they're usually like funny comments he has about like things that are going on in the scene, or like little anecdotes of like characters that he's met before and things like that. Because in this world, magic is mostly done by summoning Djinn. Magicians summon creatures, they bind them to objects, or they employ them into their service for a certain amount of time based on like the verbal contracts that they make. And then yeah, that's how they get their magic done. Different Djinn have different capabilities, like different levels and things like that, and they come from like different areas of this I think it's a dimension through something called Ptolemy's Gate. I believe the concept of summoning Djinn in this series was first uncovered in like ancient Egypt or something, but I could be wrong. Yeah, that one is really fun. I would give it a solid 4 out of 5 stars. It could be higher, really, but the ending did make me cry, so I'm taking a point away for that specifically. And the last book I have on this list is not a series. It is a series. It's a quartet, but the last 3 books are printed in Spanish, and I can't read Spanish, so, and I don't know why I can't find any information on the other 3 books in English, just Spanish. But the first book is in English, and in enough copies to be sold everywhere. I don't even understand. It's called The Valley of the Wolves by Laura Garlego Garcia. It's basically about this young girl who grew up with a invisible spirit as a best friend, and as she gets older, she gets recruited by this wizard to become the new witch of the Valley of the Wolves, and so he wants to teach her magic, basically. This story is really character driven. There's not really much that goes on plot wise, like that is really the whole plot, what I've just explained. And it's really more about the girl herself and her relationship with this mentor of hers who's kind of mean from what I remember, and her best friend who wants to help her but can't because he's barely there, you know what I mean? It's a very short and sweet book. I'm not gonna lie, I'd give it a solid 3. It's just, something for you to read and, have a relaxing time too. It's not overwhelmingly good, and again, I haven't read the rest of the series, but if you can read Spanish, I would suggest giving it a try. I don't think they're necessary though, because when I read it when I was younger, I never knew there were other books. Like I never had the thought there could be other books, and to me it wraps up very neatly. Yeah, so if that sounds like something you would want to read, I would suggest picking it up. I don't know. But those are my middle grade suggestions for books to read during quarantine. I hope you guys are all doing well, and I'll see you later. Bye.